Empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? We're 6 seconds, put 8-point beat, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Ohio State, huge victory over the Toledo Rockets edition. The Bucks had a massive 77-21 victory tonight over the Toledo Rockets. It was a very interesting affair. Toledo's defense was atrocious, maybe one of the worst I've ever seen, which is why stats don't matter. They came in as like the number 4 in the nation because they played like Antarctica State and Malone College for their first 2 games, and obviously that didn't mean anything. When you play the Buckeyes, it's a little different deal. Couple injuries of note. Trey Henderson left the game early. Not sure if he could have returned. I'm sure he probably could have. Mike Hall was held. He did not play. That was not on the availability report, so a little gamesmanship there by Ryan Day and the crew by not including him. Cam Babb also held, was a late scratch. Josh Proctor was held. Tanner McAllister, a lot of guys that weren't on the availability report, which I think is completely worthless anyways, were held tonight. So kind of interesting stuff there. So again, like I don't know why we provided an availability report because I think most teams don't do that, but whatever, it's basically worthless. So with that being said, I'm going to bring in my good friend Nevada. But first off, I got to thank you guys. We are growing. We're almost at 16,000 subscribers. Keep cranking it. Appreciate you guys. Give me your MVPs. Give me what did you most like about tonight's game? Was it the explosive offense? Was it the defense? Basically clamping down on Toledo outside of a couple of really nice runs by that superstar quarterback. Tell me what you like. Leave it in the comments. Like this. Subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends. Appreciate you, Buckeye Nation, as always. That being said, now get to my good friend Nevada. Nevada, how are you tonight?
Doing good. 77 points. I guess Ryan was pushing a lot of the right buttons. You know, we talked earlier today on a podcast about how, Ohio State had gone, 1 versus 1, best versus best, trying to kind of crank things up a little bit for this week. And, obviously Ryan Day's got a pretty good feeling for this team because they really responded on both sides of the ball. The offense was unbelievable. This, I guess, the best offensive performance since 1950. And it was truly something special to watch for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they were clicking on all cylinders. I mean, obviously they could have scored even more if they didn't, they yanked the starters relatively early for Ryan Day, mid-third quarter. CJ Stroud threw his last pass, but the numbers were sensational. And really, it was without Trey Henderson. He had 4 carries. We're always, he needs to get 20. He got 4 tonight because he left early with an injury. I think it was a concussion. But yeah, it was interesting. Were there any guys, obviously I think that the guy that I love seeing is Cade Stover. Cade Stover, they are feeding him. CJ, he only had like 1 or 2 misses all night, and one was probably the easiest throw he had all night. He missed it. Cade Stover wide open in the end zone, sailed it on him. But give me your thoughts on your MVPs. I loved what Cade did tonight. He is evolving and growing, and if you could buy stock in a player, you'd buy a lot of Cade Stover stock because he's becoming more and more a part of this offense. Kind of does everything. He's got some great hands too, but who did you like tonight, Nevada? Who stood out to you?
Well, let's first talk with Stover. I mean, Stover's one of those kids we were talked about all offseason. We talked about his leadership. We talked about his toughness. We talked about his strength in the weight room, all those intangibles. But, then it came down to, will they actually utilize him? Will they use the tight end? And, Ohio State's starting to figure out that they can throw to the tight end. Obviously, he's just a superb blocker, but such a weapon. And, when you have a guy like that opens the middle of the field and made some great catch on the sideline as well, it really, adds another dimension to an already prolific Ohio State offense. So Cade is certainly somebody, that gets recognition in my book. I mean, you're talking about Dallin Hayden having 100 yards. That's never, for the third string running back to come in and get 100 yards is not any small feat. I think it's really a tribute to this Ohio State running game and how good the guys were getting pushed because, everybody seemed to go off for Ohio State today in the rushing attack. But, Dallin getting to 100 definitely gets a game ball for me. And I thought that was certainly worthy of note. Sonny Styles is giving you a little bit of glimpse of the future. He's a 6'4" safety that can come up and can cover and run and hit with the best of them. Boy, he's going to be a star here at Ohio State. And even though it was, garbage time at the end, he was somebody that was awful lot of fun to watch. And Jaden Ballard showed that breakaway speed. And Jaden Ballard may be the fastest wide receiver on the team. And he showed a little bit of that. That the pass was underthrown from McCord. He kind of got it, and then he kind of accelerated, pushed the guy away. And finished it up with a 77-yard scamper. Again, when you add Jackson Smith and Jigba and Julian Fleming to the wide receiver room, our wide receiver, looks like we have an abundance of wide receivers. When you take them out, it looks like we're a little thin. Tonight having them back was huge. A lot of guys got in the action, and Ohio State will be feeling good going to Wisconsin because everybody got to contribute, everybody got to play, and when you do that, even your second, third, and fourth stringers are feeling good about the game. And I know we'll be on a high heading and to play Wisconsin next weekend.
Yeah, and it was great because there were a lot of guys that got their first college action tonight. Again, the change in the redshirt rule that was enacted a handful of years ago where freshmen can play in up to 4 games and not burn their redshirt is huge. So, guys that potentially could redshirt, like maybe Sonny, maybe Kai Stokes was out there. Some of these guys, back in the day, they would have probably tried to hell, just to get them another year of experience. They're out there playing, because down the stretch as we get into Wisconsin and, Penn State looked great today. They went down to Auburn and smacked them good. Michigan State, they're getting worked by Washington out at a very tough place to play. I played out there my senior year, playing at Washington, the Washington Huskies. But I liked seeing some of these young guys. But the thing about with Jim Knowles is like the future could happen really, really soon because he could look at that tape and say, the next time I give a guy the hook, he gave Josh Proctor the hook. Denzel Burke got the hook. He is not scared to pull some of these guys if they aren't ready. And if these guys start flashing in games, they got their kind of dipped their toe in the water. They got to play in some games, and some of those guys really flash. Sonny Styles looked fantastic. He's a physical hitter. Obviously, he's gonna grow a tremendous amount because he should be a high school senior. He should be a 5-star dominant high school senior right now, and instead he is a really good safety for Ohio State. And I think he's a guy that you got to get on special teams. You get him running down and covering kicks because with a guy that talented, he's not going to ever see a 5th year. He's going to be declaring for the draft before then. So you might as well get him out there, get him active, get him acclimated. I thought Ty Lee showed up a few times. That was great. Obviously you got to give a lot of love to the offensive line. I thought Paris Johnson's playing at an exceptionally high level right now. I watch him on pretty much every snap, and then I try to rewind it and watch DeWand. Fantastic. He really looks smooth out there. He looks like Tyron Smith, which is exactly what NFL draft area scouts that I've talked to say that's his comp is Tyron Smith, who will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Additionally, it was nice to see the kids like TC Caffey get in there and get that long touchdown, something he'll never forget. And you always love when you empty the bench and guys like that get in and hear their name on the speaker, get the carry, get the touchdown. Like those things are always great they're great for team morale. Even the guys that are, the established guys, the NFL types, the captains, whatever, they love seeing those guys get in and play. It's really fun. And, I like seeing the second team offensive line in there. Again, Tigra is running at that right guard spot, which it's not surprising, but, it does raise an eyebrow for some of the linemen that are older than him that a true freshman is running at right guard. So I think Justin Fry likes what he sees there. But what else, Nevada? Were there any pauses for concern? I know we can almost write it in stone that running quarterbacks have always been our kryptonite. And this kid tonight, Daquan Finn, was really good. And I'm stunned that this kid's at Toledo because if he had a real supporting cast around him, I don't know what he would be. If he played for Ohio State, he'd probably be the Heisman favorite, just like CJ Stroud is. But was there anything else that gave you any pause tonight from the Toledo Ohio State matchup?
Interior defensive line. Interior defensive line continues to be. If you're looking for concerns in a game where you score 77, it was that they found some success. We're pressuring off the edge. You can see we're lining up that jack position. We're kind of bringing everything from the outside in. And, with that one guy on the nose, he's not holding up. And again, they've found some success on the interior line and in the A gap and the D gap and the C gap. They're finding some success. And that's something that we're going to have to address as we go forward because, other teams are going to try to exploit that. Can Knowles get that figured out? Absolutely. But, last year we talked about what was the defense had many weaknesses, but where was the big concern? And I'd said this before, and some people kind of scoffed there, said, "Oh, the interior defensive line is fine." I'm like, I'm still looking for those interior defensive line guys. Hall was out today. Tyleek, I love Tyleek. He made some good plays, But other than that, you're not getting a lot out of the interior defensive line, and until we do, we're not going to be as good as we can be on defense. And if you see where we've had a little bit of trouble, even against Arkansas State, it was on those counter plays on the inside. Today they ran stuff the inside where our linebackers a little bit late getting there. They had some big plays with that, and again, you're picking nits in a game that you win by 50 or 54 or 55, whatever the heck it was. Covered easily, 56, scored 77.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, you're picking nits, but again, it's just something that Knowles is going to have to address, figure out, what's going on the interior defensive line, because there is some holes there, and you got to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it honestly speaks to the value of Mike Hall. Mike Hall is probably the second best player on our defense behind Tommy Eichenberg at this point, and he wasn't out there today. And a thing that they like to do when they run this jack look, the jack look is where they have Jack Sawyer, and tonight they actually had Javonte Jean-Baptiste as the walk-around guy that picks the gap. But you have two ends that are lined up on the tackles, and then you have a zero nose, which is head up on the center. Generally, that is whoever the note, if it's Tyleek or if it's Jerron Cage or one of those guys. But the thing about not having Mike Hall today is generally when they run that look with Teron Vincent at the nose, they put Mike Hall as one of the down defensive end guys, generally with JT2 Malawau or Zach Harrison as the other defensive end. Tonight, they had to put Tyler Friday out there instead of Mike Hall. So they had three defensive ends in the game instead of the old 2D tackles, 2D end look. So I didn't like that as much. I didn't like seeing, it's nothing as Tyler Friday, but like when you have Mike out there, he's more of a run stuffer, a more physical guy than Tyler is. He's much heavier than Tyler is. So when you put in JT2 Malala and Tyler Friday at the ends in a 3-down look, their bodies aren't really designed to be 3-4 defensive ends. They're not the 285-pound guys like Mike Hall is, a guy that can really push it in. And I think JT's fine to do it. I think Tyler Fridays don't like to do that. And then you have Jack Sawyer as the walk-around guy, which I liked. But Javonte Jean-Baptiste actually flashed today. Had a couple plays. But he actually played the Leo. He was the first time I've ever seen a guy other than Jack Sawyer play the Leo, the walk-around spot, or the Jack, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it was interesting that we still don't get as much pressure from the ends as I would like. And defensive tackle is easily the weakest spot on the entire team. And that's not necessarily because they're awful, but it's just like, you look around the team, O-line doing pretty good, tight ends fantastic, receivers fantastic, quarterback fantastic, running backs really good, secondary, and they could probably be up there with the DB or with the DTs. Linebackers have been really, really good, and our ends have been stout. They haven't gotten us the pass rushing production from a sack standpoint, but they've created pressure. They've been very good against the run. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes forward, because, we got Wisconsin now, man, and these guys are not flash and bash, and, these guys are going to line up, they're going to run it. And it was kind of almost hilarious to me that Ryan Day was showing us a two tight end, I formation type formation, because that's what Wisconsin is. They love to run that, just grind the game out. They talk a lot about how, Notre Dame and Utah and Michigan, the game plan is to line up, pound the ball, keep our offense off the field, because they can't run with our receivers when they're all out there. So they get to keep the ball away from us. So Nevada, as we head into Wisconsin, our first real major test, obviously Notre Dame, they got their first one today, so that was good. But I think Wisconsin's better than Notre Dame. But what are your thoughts going into Wisconsin week as this thing gets cranked up?
I think the game, as we talked about the game more and more, and I think the games have kind of followed a script. And I thought last week was pretty predictable. I thought this week, as I found more and more about Ohio State, found more and more about the buttons that Ryan Day was pushing, I found this game to be a little bit predictable. I think we'll come out next week and play really well. I think Ohio State will match up well against a Wisconsin team that just is devoid of playmakers on the outside, and I think they're going to have trouble. What's going to be interesting to me is going to be the first time this team goes on the road, because we start out at home forever, and then when we go on the road for the first time, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how they deal with adversity, how they deal with crowd noise, how they deal with the travel, how they deal with everything else going on. But it's not next week, and I think next week is going to be a I'm not sure what the number is going to be. I'm sure it's going to be a big number, but I'm probably going to be betting Ohio State and laying the points because I think Wisconsin's going to have a hard time playing against Ohio State, and I'm expecting a big Ohio State victory. I reserve the right to change my mind based on what I'm hearing at practice, but I think this is going to be a great week of practice, and I think Wisconsin's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's going to be a big one because I just don't think they can run with us. I think when a team like Wisconsin, they're the classic team that once we get out in front big and they're forced to throw, they have no chance. It's not in their DNA to throw the ball. It's not in their DNA to be explosive. They like the tight games. They like the ground and pound. I mean, they've never had a quarterback that was really dangerous since Russell Wilson. So it's going to be very interesting. And again, they don't scare me at all. I think maybe maybe you're onto something with Penn State because Penn State, they looked really good against Auburn. I don't know how good Auburn is, obviously. But they hung with Bama last year. I know it's a different year, different team, but that was 4 or 5 games ago, and they almost beat the Alabama who went to the national championship. So, I mean, Penn State went down there and smacked them pretty good. Thank God that game is not a whiteout. That is huge for us. But give me were there any surprises today? Were there any guys that you were like, man, it's good to see that guy do that? I mean, for me, Mitch Rossi getting his 1-yard touchdown was great. The fullback plunge, which you just never see anymore. And Mitch is he's such a key to what we do. And it's like Kevin Walsh said, he's one of our top 13 guys on offense, which, before last year, when you put his name in a nugget, I'd never heard of Mitch Rossi. And I was like, what is Mitch Rossi? And you're like, oh, he's a fullback tight end guy. And I'm hearing he's pretty good. And I'm like, okay, great. And then he shows up last year and he's all over the field, and he's not a guy that's going to collect a lot of stats, but he's a guy that is a great point of attack blocker. He's a guy that when they do a lot of their screen game, kind of their bubble screen game, he's one of the point of attack guys. He had a great block out on the edge tonight. So they gave him a touchdown, which was also great. But any kind of under the radar guys outside of, you mentioned Sonny Styles, Kai Stokes, Mitch Rossi, guys you're happy for tonight?
Well, it was good to see Keon Grace get out there and get some burn. And, again, he's a guy that I like a lot, and expecting big things out of him. It's nice to see him play. I mean, not an underrated radar guy, but a guy that's kind of a forgotten guy. Julian Fleming. What do you have? 2 touchdowns today?
Yeah.
At least 2. And that's I mean, a lot of people have written him off. A lot of people forget about him, and you kind of think about him as being almost like a disappointment. And he comes out, plays, catches everything thrown to him, gets open. I was really, really happy for him. That's going to make for a really happy wide receiver room, when guys like that score. And it's fun to see some of those young offensive linemen get out there and get in the game. We've talked about Tegra. We talked about Zev. I mean, I just think that the offensive line right now is making the running backs look so good that it's hard to kind of evaluate our running backs because when you can have anybody come out there and average 7, 8, 9 yards a carry, then, I'm not saying Trey Henderson isn't great. I'm the biggest Trey Henderson fan in the world. I'm not saying I love Mike Williams, but, they're all going for big numbers right now. And so when you do that, you got to give some credit to the scheme. And I'm going to tip my hat to C.J. Stroud for running the ball today. Ran it a couple of times. I was so happy to see it. That's all that I wanted. Talk about, he pulled it out, kept it on the one play, got 4, got hit a couple times. You could tell he didn't really like it, but he did it. Ran on that one, scrambled, picked up 5, 6 yards, kept it going. And that's my under the radar play for the day. The 2 Stroud runs when we've been calling for it. He gave it to us, so thank you, CJ. That was a nice birthday present, even though it's not my birthday, but it was a nice early birthday present for Nevada.
I'll tell you what, man, it's one of those things where it was something that had been talked about in the last 2 weeks on the scoop. Little nugget that we dropped that we had is that, hey, look for him to run it, and he's been so hesitant to do it. He's actually missed reads when he should have pulled it and ran it. He's just that hesitant to do it, and he finally did it. So we had 2 carries, got 9 yards with a long of 5, so that's great. But again, that, as silly as we make that out to be, man, I'm just telling you, when we saw what running the ball against Alabama did with Cardale Jones and how it broke their backs. I mean, it really did. And I don't even want to talk about what Daquan Finn did tonight with his running because, oh my God, was that guy dynamic and spectacular. he had no help, no defense, but that kid, I don't know who in the Big Ten I would take over him other than CJ Stroud, but there might be somebody, maybe McCarthy at Michigan, but that kid was pretty good. I mean, and like I said, he just doesn't have anything around him. But I mean, when he put his foot in the ground and ran, I was like, oh God, here he goes again. And it was dynamic. So any closing thoughts tonight, Nevada? We saw just a ton of guys get in the game. I thought it was a good win, a good 77-21. There's still plenty of stuff to clean up and get better at. But any closing thoughts tonight, Nevada?
Well, I think that game firmly puts C.J. Stroud back in as the number one option for the Heisman Trophy right now. I think Bryce Young was pretty pedestrian, and I think a game like that puts Stroud where he should, where he belongs. It was a kind of a showcase game for him. I mean, like you said, other than that one throw to Cade, which it's funny that the easiest throw he has all night is the one that
Yeah.
that he misses on. That's such a thing for a quarterback is exceptional, CJ. But he was darn near perfect and did it all. Really happy for him, and I think he's probably the favorite to win the Heisman right now. And let's hope he continues on and closes that deal.
Yeah, I loved it. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap this thing up. Appreciate you guys. We're going to be on the boards all night on BuckeyesCoop.com. Jump on. If you're not a premium member, you should give it a try because you'll probably love it because our board is on fire. Our game thread was crazy. We had tons of responses, tons of interaction, tons of great takes, and some hot takes. So it's always kind of fun. We're always on there. Huge week with Wisconsin coming up, coming to the shoe next week. That'll be an absolute war. I do not like the Wisconsin Badgers. They do not like us. So it's going to be a good old throwdown. And hopefully we can start that track meet up early. The offense will get cooking and get them out of their game plan. And we'll be ready to crank. So with that being said, as always, jump on that Buckeye Scoop message board. Let me know who is your game MVP and what did you like about tonight's dominant win over the Toledo Rockets. So that being said, as always, we're very thankful for you guys. Thank you guys so much, Buckeye Nation. And thank you, Scoop family. We appreciate you guys so much. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. You guys have a great rest of your night. Go Bucks.